Shalom Aleichem Internet. Today is the 30th of November, the 16th of Kislev. My name is Sandor Gaisinski, and here is your weekly Torah Bite. This week's Parsha is Parashat Vayishlach, and in Parashat Vayishlach, Yaakov, the third of our forefathers, is on his way home after spending 20 years in the corrupt household of his uncle Lavan, 14 years Yaakov worked for his two wives, Leah and Rachel, and the final 6 years he worked to create a little bit of a nest egg for himself to take home. Actually, it turned out to be quite a large nest egg. But now, Yaakov finally, with 11 of the 12 tribes, 11 of his sons born, is on his way back to the land of Israel, to Be'er Sheva. But on his way, he knows he is about to encounter his brother Esav. Before he ever meets Esav himself, he actually has an epic wrestling match with the angel of Esav. Yaakov manages to pin the angel down, and the angel begs Yaakov as follows. He says, "Please let me go, because every angel gets one time in its existence to praise God, and today is my day. I do not want to miss this once in a lifetime opportunity." And Yaakov says, "I will let you go on one condition. You leave me a gift." And the gift that he requested from this angel is a blessing. A blessing from an angel is a pretty serious thing. The angel turns to Yaakov and says, "Your blessing is as follows. No longer will your name be Yaakov any longer. You will not be called by the name Yaakov. Rather, you will be called by the name Yisrael, the prince and nobleman of God." So Yaakov walks away with a new name. No longer is he going to be called Yaakov. He's going to be called Yisrael. Except the very next verse says, "And Yaakov went." And in fact, a few verses later, God himself reiterates the statement of the angel and says, "No longer will your name be Yaakov, rather it will be Yisrael." And again, the very next verse says, "And Yaakov went." Now, this is especially surprising because there's other great figures that had name changes in the Torah. Avram to Avraham, Sarai to Sarah, Hosea to Yehoshua, and in all those cases they are no longer referred to by their original name. Nowhere in Tanakh, and the fact is society and history does not refer to them any longer by those original names. In fact, the Talmud goes as far as to say that if you call Avraham by his original name Avram, or Sarah by her original name Sarai, you will have violated the Torah that says no longer will their name be Sarai or Avram. And yet, in this case, where the Torah says not once, but twice, that your name will no longer be Yaakov, in fact, no longer will you be called Yaakov, you will be called Yisrael, we see that the Torah then goes on to call him Yaakov. And we do so as well. We continue to call him Yaakov. To understand this, we have to really get down to what is in a name. We know that a name, according to Judaism, taps into the very essence of who the person is. In fact, when all creation was brought in front of Adam to give names, and Adam called each one by their name, this was considered such genius that this was a comprehension beyond that of even the angels. Why? Because Adam was able to look and gaze at each creature and see its very essential core and give it its name, express that essential core outward in its title and its name. And so when somebody is given a name at the moment of birth or at their Brit Milah, what is essentially happening there is that you are expressing who they are at their very core. And when one's name is changed, then what you're doing is really altering and enhancing the source code. You're doing a major change here. Now, when Avram's name was changed to Avraham, and Sarai's name was changed to Sarah, and Hosea's name was changed to Yehoshua, God was altering their source code. God was changing their very essence and promoting them and elevating them, enhancing them. So to call them by their earlier name would be a demotion. For example, let's take the name Avram. Avram means lofty father. In other words, that Avram, up until that point, his service and his mission in life was to be separated and lofty and elevated from the world. Once he achieved that, once he had formed himself into the greatest personality that he can be, God says, I'm now going to ask you to take the next step. I'm going to alter your source code and make you Avraham, which is Av Hamon Goyim, which means the father to the world, to the nations. Now you have a responsibility to share that personality, the greatness, your level of connection with God to the whole world. And so therefore, to refer to him back as Avram is to demote him, to take him one step back in a very essential way. Yaakov also received a new name, but it wasn't as much of an enhancement as it was an addition. You see, Yaakov, again, as we mentioned last week, is the one that we follow most closely, because his approach is our approach as we stand as ambassadors of godliness and spirituality for the world, to bring and imbue the world around us with meaning and with purpose and drive it towards perfection. There's two ways one can accomplish that. One is to be Sar Kale, to be the nobleman, to be the prince of God, to go around and say, I am one step higher, I am greater, I am a diplomat. I therefore get a diplomatic status. I am above, in a certain sense, the back and forth and day-to-day aspects of life. I am a prince. And that is one way to bring about lasting and effective change. And then there's another way, which is to be a Yaakov. Yaakov means that we do what we do quietly. The ancient Hebrew word for an approach that is more surreptitious and below the radar and more subtle is ikvut, to go at it kind of like the heel, lower down, less focused on. And that's hidden in the name Yaakov. That is the concept that we can sometimes affect the world without coming in and announcing ourselves at the front door, but rather going about our lives quietly, with integrity, and doing the little things that bring about big change by just being a good person, by being an honest person, by loving your family. Nothing major, nothing that puts you on the front pages of newspapers. It's not being nobility in the way that nobility is a title, but it's being nobility in the way that being a noble person in the way you live your life. And both are necessary. We can't shun Yaakov in favor of Yisrael. There are times where we need to be Yisrael, and at those moments, that's when God says, you will not be called Yaakov. At the moments that you need to be Yisrael, you will be Yisrael in the greatest of ways. But then there are times that it's still necessary to be Yaakov, to have a quiet integrity, to have a quiet and deliberate effect on the world around us. And that's when we could be a Yaakov. Wishing you all a successful week, and looking forward to seeing you next week for the next installment of TorahByte. Shabbat Shalom.